All right, so thank you. I know you're still here, but let's go ahead and show the panel who we have, Jen. All right. So what we'd like to do here, there's the panel. Okay, is kind of do a nice introduction with each one of the panelists and why we identified each one of the panelists and have them share with you their personal story of why they have joined the Patriot Empowerment Institute and what they're doing in their field and how they feel they can truly make this difference in the veteran community. So let's kick it off really quick. First, let's start with let's see. Let's start with the talented doctors. We've got some doctors here, right? I think I see one of them right there. Let's see, doctor. Let's see, which one is it? I've got to pull my notes here. I think I have Dr. Yvette Bronson. Is that right? AKA Dr. V. Is that what we're going by as a nickname? Okay. Got it. Dr. Branson received her PhD in clinical health psychology in 2006. Worked for 10 years in education as a learning specialist for students who were troubled or who had differences, and now coordinates the VITAL, which we see behind you, initiative at the New York Harbor Department of Veteran Affairs. Very interesting. Dr. B, can you tell us a little bit? We're seeing the VITAL in the background. What does that stand for? Why are you so inspired and compelled to help veterans?
Thanks, Erica. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's just wonderful to see what this organization is trying to do out in the world, and myself feel supported that you're doing this work, and I can tell you why. Because VITAL is a VA program that's unique in that it supports student veterans. And what we were finding is that many of the returning veterans from recent conflicts were not coming to the VA, despite the fact that we knew that they needed help. And we knew they needed help because they were answering lots of questionnaires, lots of depression, lots of thoughts of suicide, lots of anxiety, yet they were not asking for help. And they certainly were not banging down the door at the VA. So we wanted to create a program at the VA that would be more like an outreach program where I would meet the veterans where they are. So many of the transitioning veterans are using the GI Bill. We knew that they would be transitioning on college campuses. VA set up the VITAL initiative. One of the main problems that I see is that there are 12,000 student veterans in the New York area, and there's one of me. So it's a little bit like a drop in the bucket. And I'm doing everything I can to reach those veterans and be a support. But when I see an organization like PEI, I know that there's other help. So in other words, I see that this is an organization that wants to prepare the veterans even before they're leaving the military. So I'm dealing with them once they've left the military, and PEI is really talking about how can we set them up for success before they leave the military. And that's really inspiring for me.
Thank you so much. You're definitely passionate. We appreciate that. And we are looking forward a little later to hearing some more Q&As about how you're supporting that and leading these initiatives. I'd also like to do an introduction here to another doctor, Dr. Thedno Macgranado. Thank you for joining us. You have a very impressive background. Very happy to introduce you. You served 7 years in the Marine Corps, from what I understand. You were a recon Marine and you served in the Vietnam. Wow, thank you. After college, you went on and taught history and political science for over 30 years with the San Diego Community College District, as well with SDSU, Grossmont, and Southwestern College. Thank you for being a local professor here. We appreciate you and the talent you're doing. You're a mentor and a leader to many students and veterans. I've received phenomenal feedback about what you've done and how you've changed their lives. The background that you teach is history and political science. You hold a BA in political science, a master's degree in American history, and a PhD in Latin America. You have 2 teaching credentials from UC Berkeley, Can I say thank you? You are one that served. You went on to become educated, and now you're mentoring and helping others in the community. It's just phenomenal to have you here. Thank you for your service to our community and building the next generation of leaders. We'd like to know a little bit about your story, your military background, particularly your transition out, and how you became a teacher from combat to now teaching. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And I believe you're going to go by the nickname as Dr. T as well. So we got a Dr. B and a Dr. T. So it's all you now, Dr. T. Uh-oh, you're on mute. Let's make sure we get you off mute. Uh-oh. Dr. T. Ednall, you're on mute.
There.
There we go. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Hello. Good afternoon. Bon pomeriggio. Konnichiwa. Buenas tardes. I am a Latino immigrant from Nicaragua who became a proud U.S. citizen 3 months later and a proud U.S. Marine 3 years later. Education has been the key to my progress in this country. The more education I obtained, the more I realized how little I knew. Something that I try to share with my students. Somewhere along the line, I learned that what we know is a drop and what we don't know is an ocean. My degrees and my formal education did not end on the campus of the university. I'm continually learning. So I began to follow the advice of one of my mentors who said, live as if you're going to die tomorrow. Study if you are going to live forever. As members of the military, the thought of death is very much relevant. The second half of the advice, the study part, is why we are here. As a college instructor for 30 plus years, I have had my share of knowledge. I have shared my knowledge with my students, many of them veterans, whom I also mentored, while keeping in mind that I also needed to motivate and inspire them. So that's why I am here. Thank you.
Thank you. I keep remembering we had an opportunity to have lunch, and we were just talking about life, and you're just one of those people that just brings it back to the basics. And I keep thinking about what you said, how everything is relative. And that's a great philosophy. Appreciate that. And what we'd like to also now introduce you is to our final panelist and speaker right there at the corner. And this is Lieutenant Colonel Alex Martin. Very impressive resume as well. I'd like to give a little insight here to the audience. Served in the U.S. Marine Corps, leading infantry, recon, and special operations units, over 4 operational deployments. You're a founder, an international explorer, and an entrepreneur that's lived in Kenya for some time, a couple of years there. You hold an MBA from UC Berkeley School of Business, a BS from the United States Naval Academy. You're also a graduate of Stanford's Business School Ignite program in entrepreneurship and the Marine Corps War College. Recently, the lieutenant here has founded a tech startup company called ClearSpeed. And no surprise, successful. Like most entrepreneurs, his journey is where he got here today. And we're just so excited to not just hear your success, but really have a little more insight about your leadership style, the entrepreneurship, and the service that you bring and through this transition. So can you do a nice introduction and give us insight about your entrepreneur journey and what it's like to transition out of the military?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So I'm here in large part because one of the people that taught me a great deal about leadership is starting this venture. So, you know, James Leandro is one of my leadership instructors. We got Joshua Lind on the call here, Tommy Hartrick. These are guys that taught me how to be a leader. So I'm here basically doing what I always did in the Marine Corps, which is kind of following the example of some pretty incredible people. You know, the definition of an entrepreneur, you can look it up. There's a lot of them. I like to start with what Oxford, dictionary says, and it's basically this kind of boring, formulaic. These are people that go after business activities for profit, and part of that is true. But if you break down the dynamics of that and you kind of get deeper into it, it's really that people attack a problem that no one else has the courage, ingenuity, talent, capability to solve. And they're doing it for the benefit of others. And as we've seen in the past, at least the past 10 years, the definition of profit has expanded beyond financial return, right? Social ventures, businesses that are for profit, for purpose. We're all realizing this is like totally agnostic of politics. The ability to solve problems and to, dynamically change the landscape, that's the role of a select few of people who can come at problems differently and say, we have a different way to do business. I think the military breeds entrepreneurs in a way that other groups aren't. And I think that's really exciting. And that's why this program excites me so much. It's coming at one of the most critical problems that we have today from one of our most underserved groups of high performing, capable men and women in our country, citizens that are able to perform dynamically, from education, as we see here with Dr. T, to just being great citizens in their community, to serving across all kind of spectrums. And this is a population that I think PEI is going after, and they're doing it under the leadership of the Garcias and Leandro that you see here today. So I'm really excited to be here because of the problem they're attacking. And I think they're going after it from a really creative way. For me, myself, like all the kind of background that I had in the Marine Corps was all about learning from my my senior enlisted, or my NCOs in the Marine Corps. NCOs, for those not familiar with the military parlance, those are your leaders, those are your corporals and your sergeants, those are your workhorses, and then those above them that are leading them. And so as an officer, to come into organizations, your charge is to put them to work in dynamic ways, which really means selling their capabilities. And so today I'm just honored to be here. I feel really blessed to be here, because this to me feels like the launch of something that is so refreshing, so needed, and coming at a problem that is so real, but has the ability to really enrich the soil that we can get incredible returns for our community and for our country. And so for those reasons, I couldn't be more honored and happy to be on this panel and to be sharing my views of maybe how entrepreneurship, by what they're starting here, can attack something that has to be solved. Like, bottom line, and we got to solve it, and we can start it in really small, incredible ways. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, love your energy. We just appreciate your words, ingenuity, courage, just your service aspect. I see why you're very successful, and we want you to continue to be successful and help others along the way. So thank you for that. We got some questions here, and I'm going to ask some questions. Feel free, audience, if you want another question that we don't get to, like I said, put it in the chat box. But as we start to dive down to the conversation here and really talk about PEI and what it's doing and the benefits of where it is being the leader now for these to help. One of the questions is, and particularly this is for the Dr. T and Alex, I want you guys to think about this. What skills did you learn in the military that helped you get to where you are today? You're both very successful. You obviously went down the right path, right? Because what we're talking about is the people that don't have that path clearly identified. So think about that, and how was that path identified? Was it something in you that made you drive to be this way? I mean, help us, give us insight to how you got to where you are today. What is that secret recipe? Uh-oh. Dr. T?
Okay.
There we go. Go for it.
Yeah, I was 17 when I joined, and I was really excited to see if I could make it. And so I tried hard enough that I was promoted out of boot camp. Another thing, it's interesting that when I was at NCRD, during my last few months. There were 92 Marines were eligible for promotion to E4, and I was one of the 4 that made it out of 92. They could only promote 4. My drive was great because in the Marine Corps, they recognize your efforts, and if you try your best, they recognize it. It's one of the places in society that they can really mold the person. And everything I did in the Marine Corps helped me to get through college. I did much better than if I had not served. And when I became a teacher, then I had the best of both worlds, my Marine Corps experience and my college education together. They made me, well, very successful, very successful. I know because when I compare, I see other teachers who never served, you can see the difference. You can see the difference. For example, I asked one day, I asked my students, uh, well, ask your teachers if they see themselves as a role model or as a leader in the classroom. Most of them said role model. And that's one of the big lessons I learned in the Marine Corps, that you are a leader if you are in charge of 5 people or 30 people, because you're the god in that room. Imagine in the battlefield, maybe you only have 5 under you or 10 under you. You are a leader. And where if you're in a classroom, you may have 40 or 50 people, and they say, "I'm not a leader." Well, hell, man, what are you doing here then?
Mhm.
Because you have to lead the class in a certain direction. You have to have expectations from them. You have to help them understand what it is that we're trying to achieve here. So that, in the Marine Corps, that came very helpful. And in college, they give you the actual book learning, but the 2 experiences are invaluable.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. Alex, do you have anything to interject? I mean, you're the serial entrepreneur and startup, and I mean, how do you do it? There's people on the call. What's your recipe? Go ahead, share us with us.
Look, it's the same recipe that works like in the Marine Corps and other services, and it's teamwork. And with beyond teamwork, it's starting with yourself. Like, where do I fall short? So as the leader, you have the title, you have the charge. As a 23-year-old, you might be responsible for, 24 wonderful Americans, but you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the expertise. So you have to really do something that's so hard for humans, which is lean into that thing called self-awareness and empathy, and be okay with not being the answer guy or gal, right? And so that's the key here, is like, we all are, by the way, PEI is attacking this crazy problem um, with an approach on the answer, right? Like, that's all about entrepreneurship. We have an idea, we're going to attack this problem, we have an approach on the answer, here's what the ROI is going to be. um, but like, the solution's going to come on this iterative collaborative process. If you can put really, really talented, humble people together around a problem and co-create creative solutions to the most dynamic problems, like, that's how it's going to get done. It's going to take courage, ingenuity, humility. And so that's been my recipe for success, is basically being comfortable being a C student, so on and so forth, or a C operator or a B operator, and allowing the A operators to rise regardless of rank, class, background, gender, whatever the titles and tags we have. It's just like, can you help me solve this problem? Can you help us solve this problem? Let's frame it, let's design it, and then let's go out and let's do it together, and let's get better every time. To me, that, I think, is the recipe for success, business wise, in the military, and now with what PEI is doing.
Uh, I love your outlook on leadership, and I appreciate you for being so authentic here. It's very well appreciated. I want to ask another question here. It sounds like, and now let's start going into the depth of this, right? So, Dr. B, I'm going to bring you in for some of these questions, if that's okay. We've all heard that, we've been so successful, everyone that serves in the military, and they learn these great skills. You have 2 successful stories here, case studies. So why are the statistics so bad? Where is that coming from? It seems, is that a balance, or are we just not talking about it? Dr. B, can you share with us of where these bad statistics are coming from and how real this problem is?
Yeah. Well, I hate to be the one who's the downer here, but we have had a problem with suicide, and it was very moving when Steve, I think it was Steve, I don't know, it could have been Ben, mentioned being at a funeral, and just funeral after funeral after funeral. And it's one thing if you're serving with others and they were to die in combat, but when somebody takes their life, it's a whole other can of worms. And we that statistic of about 20 dying of suicide a day, 20 veterans a day dying of suicide, that number has been very hard to bring down, and we know that we need to do more. And it seems like the research is showing that exactly what PEI is trying to do, which is offer more mentorship, offer more support, so that people don't fall through the cracks, helping people deal with the reintegration stressors, the service related stressors, whatever the combat exposure was, and make sure that they have adequate assistance so that they don't get lost between those two worlds. And you have these three founders who've all had experience with that. Maybe they went in different directions, but I think what they're trying to do is really significant and very important. I think the mentorship aspect is key to bringing down that number. And the other thing I think that's really important for people to know, if you're thinking about employing veterans and or mentoring them, they'll always tell you that they're doing okay. They'll always look like they're doing okay, and they could be jello inside. So we need to be able to get to this place where we're comfortable saying, no, how are you really doing? Tell me how are you sleeping? Are you able to concentrate? Are you, really don't be afraid. And we need to be able to train all of us to be able to ask the question and not be afraid to say, you know what, to answer, if somebody answers and says, you know what, I'm not feeling so great, I'm having this issue or that. If they can't open up to talk because they don't think that you're comfortable asking the question, then we're not going to know. And that's where some of the danger comes in, and the suicidality becomes more of an issue, because we back away, and we need to move forward. We need to move into that question.
I thank you for that. That's excellent feedback. And I think something that we can all have just awareness around with the veterans. I do want to ask a question, Dr. T, to you. A recent study found that 1 in 100 veterans graduate from community college. As a professor of City College, I can imagine you come across a number of these veterans post-military service as well as active duty service members. Can you highlight the major issues that you're witnessing these students, veterans are experiencing, and how you're helping that?
Well, I think the main thing is that they're very new to the environment. And since veterans usually come from out of town, they feel isolated. And that's one of the big problems that people have, not just veterans, the isolation. When we transfer students from City College to San Diego State, we used to get feedback from them. And the one thing that was really hard on them was they used to say, we feel very lonely. You can't make friends here. It seems like the lonely crowd. People are walking around in tons of people all around you, and yet you feel lonely, which is a very strange thing. As far as our students, one of the problems is that when they come in, they don't know the terrain. They don't know where all the services are. So they really need someone to mentor them, to say, look, you need to go to A, B, C, and D. You need to talk to the counselors. You need to know where the nurses are, etc. So financial aid, because they have scholarships that they could apply for. So many of them don't know that. Sometimes they're reluctant, for example, to go and meet their teachers, to go and talk to them one-on-one. that is one of the most important things a student can do. And many of them are very reluctant. I don't know why, but I always don't emphasize that to them. Mentorship. There are many instructors who would more than happy be your mentors, but they never ask, they never talk to them about it. And so I think a lot of it is they're a little bit reserved or a little bit shy. They see your teacher like in the military, you know, the structure, and they can make the transition that now you're in civilian life. However, you have to admit that many of the faculty members give that impression that I am better than you, that I'm higher than you, I know a lot more than you, therefore, you know, keep your distance. So you break the ice by going to their office and talking to them. Now you have 30 students in a classroom. Somebody came and talked to me. I would ask them about their lives, about their families, et cetera, et cetera. Just a few minutes of conversation. It's amazing how we both relate to each other. It's no longer a number. She's no longer a number. Now we're, oh, Mary. Oh, and then, you know, I had something with that I can remember her by. And you have to reach out to them because they will not go to your office on their own. So you actually have to call them, hey, Mike, come by tomorrow. So that's very important. Many times I've found that a counselor, academic counselors, you go to one, they give you one information. You go to another one, they give you a little bit different information about the same thing. So you really have to touch base with more than one counselor. Majors change, and that's another big thing. You need to know what you're doing when you change your majors. I knew a young guy who lost a whole semester because a counselor failed to tell him what was going on. So those are yeah, I think that now, you know, with my experience and looking back, I think I could be a really good mentor. And you know what? I wouldn't even charge him for it.
You are a mentor. I like that. You're in.
I just
we need your help.
I just wanted to make Alex smile because he has a beautiful smile.
He does. He does. That's great. I think that's good.
Can I throw something in there?
Sure. This is a conversation, please. Is that Carl Miller, CEO of Jinguli Power?
Yes. Hi.
Thank you.
So Brian's on too, my partner Brian, and I wanted to say that I'm hoping I'm going to be a big supporter of this. As Steve and Ben know, you know, we're big promoters of the veteran community. We help wherever we can. I think 40% of our company are veterans. We hired 2 more SkillBridge people this week. But I think what I want to try to get out of this, if I can, from you guys is a little bit of help on some of the warning signs for, I do a lot of mentoring and do a lot of coaching, but some of the warning signs of some of the guys that may be having trouble, guys and girls, we have both. So, so Ben, I sent you a note. I'll volunteer to be a mentor, but you guys got to give me a little mentoring back. Is that a fair trade?
That's a great trade. And as we're developing that pillar, right?
Absolutely.
Erica,
if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in. There's a couple of questions in here.
Please do. I think that's
before that, I'd like to propose a toast.
Yep.
We have an individual that's forward deployed from an undisclosed location, Master Sergeant Tommy Hartrick, who is, again, you know, protecting us while we're here toasting. With that, I'd like to say, "Hoorah!" Thank you, Master Sergeant Hartrick.
Yeah.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for the acknowledgement.
Matt has a quick question, specifically about the transition classes. What formal classes training did you have during your discharge process? How long was the training? What things were covered? How much forethought did you give to the outcome? In a nutshell, you know, in the video, it was a couple individuals mentioned the military in general has between a 5 to 3 day transition program, and those transition programs cover everything that we're doing. The problem is it comes at they're forced on the individuals almost, creating this negative aspect to transition. And on top of that, they're receiving it sometimes 3 months, a month, even sometimes even days before they get out. So, trying to take 5 days, 40 hours of information and jamming that into an individual's brain just days before they transition, it goes unheard, and it goes pretty much on deaf ears for the most part. And that's where we're taking the information. The information is being processed. However, it's not being delivered appropriately. Where the military spends, 2 years on average forming an individual from the time he gets to boot camp to the time he's operational in a leadership role, the military is only spending 5 days. And that's where we're trying to dissect those 5 days and give them the 2 years that they deserve.
I appreciate that, James.
Erica,
Is that Carl? I
sorry,
want to make
I just
sure
came
that,
in. I came in a little bit late.
oh,
Mike
fantastic.
Spyro here. Just
Okay.
a caveat on what James Leandro is saying. I think there's a huge disservice to the regular Marine Corps in that regard. A lot of the special operation forces, they have these transition programs that are 10, 12, 14 weeks long that really provide a lot of insight and support in the Marines, the individuals transitioning out of military life into the civilian world. The transition course that the Marine Corps provides, the 3 to 5 day course, is definitely not sufficient enough to help those individuals transition appropriately. And it is a disservice. So anything to support that and kind of move things forward, provide them a better opportunity would be great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's so insightful to share this. I do want to answer that question that Carl Miller proposed, because I think it's a question that everybody has on their mind. Dr. Branson, can you provide some answers to that?
Yeah. First, I want to let people know there are the trainings. If you've been in the military, I know you've had these suicide prevention trainings. The civilian side has those trainings. They're called gatekeeper trainings. That might be what they call them in the military. The VA will offer something that's called Operation Save for free. It's a 1-hour training to teach people in this public health approach to suicide prevention, about the warning signs, what to notice, how to speak to people about this, how to kind of, you might be nervous about asking the question, but you're probably feeling better than they are if they're feeling suicidal. So just get over whatever fears you have and ask clearly, have you had thoughts of suicide? Are you thinking of suicide? No beating around the bush. No, you have to be very clear, because the moment somebody picks up on you're afraid to get an answer here, they're not going to talk about it. There can be a lot of shame around having these feelings because of all different reasons, religious reasons, the way they were raised, ethical reasons. But the fact is, if somebody is having those feelings, they need to be able to talk about it. There aren't enough people who are psychologists, and we don't have enough eyes and ears, right? There's only one of me, and it has to be all of us that take responsibility. And that's really what these trainings are about. So it's great that this crew at PEI is taking this on, and I'll do whatever I can to help. I'm willing to help train people as well. I could talk about those specific warning signs, what to look for. But I think I don't want to lead people to think that they shouldn't also go for that training. So let's leave it at that for right now.
Okay, appreciate that.
Dr. Bronson.
Yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Could you say your name and?
Mike Spyro.
Mike Spyro? Okay,
Yep.
Thank you, Mike.
I was a young Padawan of Steve's. Hi, buddy. How you doing? With that, though, the suicide prevention, I think something the Marine Corps does well, not often practiced, I would say, depending on who you are and the type of leadership style. But something Martin mentioned earlier is just the leadership in the Marine Corps and where we stand. One of those guiding principles being know your Marines and seek self-improvement, right? Really getting down to the crux of it is leadership. Those senior leaders, and correct me if I'm wrong or misguided in this, really taking the time and opportunity to sit down and talk with their subordinates, whether they be in the military or in civilian life, taking that time to get to know them and understand them, where they are, to identify and see those different changes they may be experiencing. I think that goes a long way in helping to identify some of those suicide ideologies, cues, points that may be out there. Without that, you're just going to be clueless, and you're going to wait for an individual to tell you when they're feeling suicidal, which doesn't. It's too late by that point.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. One thing that I will add is that if a leader can talk about their own struggles and doesn't have to pretend that everything is just fine, that's what we need. But we've had a problem with leadership not being able to do that, because in general, we're not comfortable talking about that. And, there's such stigma around that. And one of the things that we just need every veteran, everyone who's, separating from the service to understand is that everybody has transition issues. You know why? Because the military trains your brain in a certain way that doesn't function the way it needs to function in civilian life as it does in the military. But I don't know, I don't want to hijack the conversation. I want to let Erica do her thing, but thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
I think this is exactly the intent of what we wanted from this first kickoff meeting. We want to have those uncomfortable conversations. This is taboo. We said that coming up. We want to prepare the veterans, these patriots that have served, and so they do have a success. They do have options. And by Dr. Branson, you giving insight and tools on what we need to do and how we need to prepare, that's exactly what we're looking for. I do want to be sensitive to people's times here. I know that we're coming to an end very quickly. We didn't get into a lot of questions, but this is just the first. I know we're planning to have a golf tournament a little later in the year, all dependent on how things move in society, right? Of how things are. But I want to ask one last question before we move on to the raffle. And if we haven't had a chance to buy your tickets, we'll put the link up again. Please do. We've only got a few purchases, so the one or two people that's buying the tickets are going to get it all if you guys don't. But before we close it out, let's ask if each one of our panelists can give us a takeaway here. I always ask this question, in your professional opinion, each of you three here as panelists, what are the biggest impacts that you feel like the audience, us here, that we can do to help prepare these veterans? And if you could just think about that and provide us just one thought around that. I know we could talk about 10, but let's just do one. What's a one takeaway? How can we prepare these veterans? All right, let's start with Lieutenant Martin.
Okay, I'm going to answer with a quote.
All right.
Okay, so but it's appropriate because this gentleman, I think he came to Columbia for his doctorate of education, and I'm Dr. T and Dr. B. So this is Haim Ganot. This is my favorite leadership quote, and I think it sums up PEI. It sums up what we're all trying to do here. So I'm going to read it. I have come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. I possess tremendous power to make life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis is escalated or de-escalated, and a person is humanized or dehumanized. If we treat people as they are, we make them worse. If we treat people as they ought to be, we help them become what they are capable of becoming. And that's my favorite leadership quote, because to me, it's aspirational. It's a call to action for everyone on this call. If you own a business and you have the ability to hire, if you are an educator and you have the ability to teach, or if you're just like all of us who are just kind of humans in this world, you can kind of make a difference. And Haim Ginott reminds us with this quote from his book, Teacher and Child, a book for parents and teachers. We can all be reminded we all have the ability to change one life or two. We don't have to have it figured out to do it. So that's my kind of long takeaway from another educator from Columbia.
I thank you for that. Very insightful and inspirational. How about Dr. B? What's your words of wisdom for
Yeah,
the
I,
audience?
I would say again, shorthand, that everybody here, because you've shown that interest by being here, should make it a point to see the documentary called Almost Sunrise. This is something I use to teach people who've separated from the service that they're not the only ones who are dealing with transition issues. And it's something very important for civilians to see, to get a real insight into some of the struggles of the transition. And once you have a sense of that, there's that military cultural competency. And I think that makes a big difference. I'm really working with that film a lot in an educational setting. And it's quite powerful. There's a lot of materials around showing the film and presenting it and having panels and such, but that's what I would say for now.
Thank you. And I did put that in the chat if you guys want to leave anything. And then let's close it out. Dr. T, any words of wisdom, takeaway, please?
Well, many times people feel very angry about something and they start attacking things that they don't know. And one of the things I have found is that you have to show them in their own mind, in their own way, how this will be helpful to you, which is what this group is trying to do. And I tried this with police groups when I talk to them. And one of the things some years ago, Border Patrol guys, I was giving a presentation to them, and they were very, very angry because every time they mentioned their name, it's because some injury to somebody or some incident that made them look bad. So they said, that's the only thing the newspapers report. So I asked them about our local newspaper. Our local newspaper was conservative. And I asked them, where do you think that newspaper fits in, on the left or the right? And they all raised their hand and said, on the far left, right there with Jane Fonda. And then I asked him, if an average citizen came to you and you walked him around for 24 hours so they can actually see what it is that you have to do, what is required of you, do you think that citizen would change his or her mind about who you are and what you are up to, what you're up against? And they say, yeah. So basically we're talking about a little bit of knowledge goes a long way, which is what we're trying to do, to impart a little bit of knowledge and just to get them through the door, to make that step to go to college. And another way of showing what a little bit of experience can do, I always remember what Mark Twain said. He said, when I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant, I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astounded at how much the old man had learned in 7 years. And I thought, well, that's a good way to show what a little bit of education or experience can do. And so this is what we're trying to do, and that's from learning here.